What is going on, guys? Coach Joe here in the office, and we have to be quiet because the baby is sleeping. But figured I'd play around with some new lighting setups, see if you guys like it. And I'm also going to do some Q&As. Maybe this is the ASMR, Fall Asleep with Coach Joe, as he answers your questions about training, life, and more. So these questions I pulled right from Instagram Q&A. I do this about once a week. Feel free to drop your questions. I answer them pretty short on Instagram stories, and then I try to go a little bit more in depth with the YouTube video that I'm making now. And we have 8 questions that we are going to be covering. So first off, really appreciate you guys sending the questions in, and let's dive right to it. The first question we're gonna hit you with is high bar or low bar squatting. What do I personally enjoy more or find myself gravitating towards? And then also, who would I recommend doing high bar or low bar or both? So let's dive into the nitty gritty. And the funny thing is, I didn't even low bar squat until about 2018 when I was doing programming with Alan Thrall. For me, I would probably choose the high bar squat over the low bar squat. It's just a movement that I enjoy more. It's something I've done more consistently across the years, even after being introduced to low bar squatting. But at the same time, depending on what my goals are, my aches, my pains, and that sort of thing, it's good to know how to leverage both, when to use them and when to not use them, and just kind of what they're good for in general. All right, so real quick, when it comes to the high bar squat, we are gonna have the bar on our traps. That's one of the big differences. The other one's gonna be, we have a more vertical torso. On top of that, we are gonna be a little bit more knee over toes, so it's gonna bias the quads a bit more versus the low bar squat. And it's overall just a great movement for people who wanna work on performance or sport, I would say. Probably a little bit more towards athletics than the low bar squat, but we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go through it. I do think doing the high bar squat is going to require a little bit more mobility, which you can progressively get better with over time. And on top of that, it's been less taxing on the low back and a little bit more forgiving on the hips, I would say, than the low bar. So things to look out for when it comes to the high bar squat is going to be a little bit more of the wear and tear on the knees. And that could just be tendinopathy flare-ups over time, which can be managed, not a big issue, but just for me historically, that's something that has aggravated my knees. And on top of that, it typically just requires a little bit more mobility. So the more you do it, the better you'll get, and the more mobility and range of motion you'll have. But just starting out, it may be a little bit more challenging for people who are typically a lot tighter when it comes to the hips, knees, and ankles. So let's talk about the low bar squat. So the big difference with the low bar squat is that the bar is placed lower. It's gonna sit right on the shelf of the rear delt. So it's gonna have a lower seated position on the back. On top of that, we're going to be leaning forward more with our torso angle, which is going to put a lot more emphasis on the posterior chain, such as the low back and the hips. So this variation is phenomenal for absolute strength. So you really, in theory, should be able to low bar squat more than your high bar squat, just due to the leverages and the muscles that we're using in those certain positions. Hence why a lot of big time powerlifters, they're doing low bar squatting. So it's great if you're looking to strengthen those areas or if it just feels better for you to do a low bar squat versus a high bar squat. Could be how it feels on the knees, the hips, whatever. You can fill in the blank. If it feels better for you and it can still help you achieve your goals, especially when it comes to long-term training, that's what I'm in favor for. Some things to look out for when it comes to low bar squat is just definitely going to be your discomfort in the shoulders and potentially the elbows over time. So one thing to be mindful of, there's obviously lots of tips and tricks that people have put out to help mitigate that issue. But for me, that's one thing I've always noticed is my shoulders and my elbows start to get pretty cranky the longer I do low bar, and also can be a little bit more stressful on the low back. So obviously proper training and programming is going to be clutch when figuring out how to periodize this in your training appropriately. But I've always found that at some point I kind of reach that limit where I do need to give my elbows and my shoulders a little bit of a rest. I have to be careful with how I program the intensity so that I'm not fatiguing the low back too much. So yeah, I recommend learning both and when to utilize them. Why, what are your goals, your restrictions, your limitations? And then obviously stick with the one more that you maybe gravitate towards, but don't be afraid to throw it in here and there, when it works best for those situations. And like I said, you put gun to my head, I'm gonna choose high bar, and that's just kind of my gut feeling on it. So here's a good one. I've done a video on this almost 10 years ago at this point, so it may be interesting for me to go back and see the difference of what I said then compared to what I say now. And the question is, what certs would you recommend for someone who's interested in coaching and training as a career? So the way I'll take this is I'll explain with what I did, and you can run with that how you want. So basically, when I was in college, I had a different career path chosen, but I was really into the strength and fitness stuff. And I figured, hey, if anything on the side, I can do personal training and coaching. So I got a personal training certification through the college that I was at, and it was very basic, like bare minimum. I just had to get the piece of paper, take the test, do an assessment. I was good to go. So by doing that, my foot was already in the door. Now the big thing is, as time went on, and I ended up switching my career path to doing more exercise science, kinesiology, and basically everything that I do today, I was able to kind of gear my certifications and my continued education deeper into the things that I was interested in. So the biggest step that really helped figure out the path for that was getting on the gym floor and coaching. So, once I kind of knew this is the route I wanted to take, I really dove in head first, training all different types of people, demographics, ages, abilities, and I was just training for hours and hours every single week, all different people, you name it. And really what that helped me do is gain so many skills on coaching, communicating, figuring out how to solve problems. And a lot of those problems are questions that people ask, and I was figuring all that stuff out on the fly. So when it comes to the best certification, I mean, yeah, there's some amazing certifications out there and mentorships and programs, but I would say really the biggest thing that'll help you with your experience is going to be face-to-face interaction with your clients, your demographic, and in the beginning, trying everything out to figure out where you start to navigate towards. And then based on where that direction is going, you can figure out what type of mentorship programs are there for that, or what type of degree can I get in that realm, or what certifications are very specific in those areas that I'm interested in. And that's just really going to help you become a better coach. And I think at the end of the day, guys, what it comes down to is the search to better and master your craft, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you're at. You could be 20 years, you could be 30 years, you could be 10 days into the journey, but that search for growth and getting out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself and challenging yourself and learning, that needs to remain constant. If you do that, things are going to happen. You're going to find yourself in the right opportunities, the right mentorships, getting the right certifications, but just never give up that ever searching, just drive for knowledge and that white belt mentality. I can't stress that enough, and I'll leave it as cliche as it is. If you're the strongest person or smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So surround yourself with people that are challenging you, who are better than you or know more than you, because it's only going to help you level up. Which one of my programs is the closest to my current training plan? Well, I'm not sure how in the know you are right now, but I'm 8 weeks post-op from a quad tendon and muscle tear surgery, which was pretty brutal. So right now, I'm doing a 4-day per week training split where I'm doing 2 upper body push days and 2 upper body pull days. Now I break those up with different muscle groups, obviously. So when it comes to right now, I'm training 4 days per week. Now I got a wife, kids, a job, all sorts of craziness. So my schedule has to be flexible. Sometimes I'm working out at 4 in the morning. Sometimes it's going to be 4 at night. But the main thing is that I get my 4 sessions in. So that's going to be all upper body days. I have 2 push days and 2 pull days. Now those exercises kind of vary, and I play around with the volume and intensity, so I'm able to train that much with my upper body per week and still get good results. And then on top of that, I'm just doing conditioning. My goal is always to get 120 to 150 minutes of zone 2 or more per week, and I allocate that in different ways. Sometimes it's post-workout, sometimes it's going to be as a separate session, whatever. End of the day, get it done. I'll actually be making a video where I just whiteboard the program so you guys can try it. It's very specific, obviously, to somebody who just can't train their lower body during this time and still wanting to make progress and hitting most of the main muscle movement patterns for the upper body that we can. So once that's up, I'll just make sure I link it back to this video, but check it out. You guys feel free to use it. And if it works for you, fantastic. So to answer your question, when it comes to the programs that are probably the closest that I put out to what I'm doing right now, it would probably have to be any of the hypertrophy programs or the power building programs, because I do have a main lift, which would be like, my compound or strength lift. And then for the most part, it's going to be bodybuilding accessories, just the rest of that training session. So check any of those programs out. We have the app, we have a la carte programs. We also have my custom programming questionnaire where you can fill out all the information, get on a call with me, and we can figure out if you want to work with me directly or any of the other options that I mentioned. But fill out the survey. It's free. You get in contact with me. It's legit me. We can get you figured out. Lost all desire to lift. Have you ever felt like this before? If so, how have you been able to keep going? So I've answered this question a lot, and I just kind of go through my checklist of when I've been in that situation, what I do. I'm not saying it's the end all be all and this is the way it needs to be, but for me, in a nutshell, when I feel that way, first thing is do more things that I enjoy. So if I've been training really hard for a long time, or maybe it was a competition prep where it's not only physically, but mentally and emotionally can be taxing, sometimes I just don't want to do that type of training. So instead of kind of bagging it, I just try to switch to something else that I enjoy at the time, or something that just makes me feel good. And it doesn't really have to make much sense, and there doesn't have to be much structure to it. And I think that's what a lot of people start freaking out about, right? Is, man, if I switch it up, what are the sets, the reps, and what's this workout going to be? And listen, in the grand scheme of things, the biggest thing that matters is consistency. And if you take, I don't know, a couple weeks and kind of veer off what you were doing, but you're still moving and doing something physically active, and maybe it's a little bit of resistance training, maybe it's not, but some sort of physical task, your body's going to come back really quickly. And also, even in that downtime where you're doing something else that is very different from the normal programming at the time, you're giving yourself just that mental break, which can be huge, right? So for me, maybe I got done my competition prep, I walk in the gym, absolutely disgusted with it, which would never happen, by the way. But if I did, maybe I just start going for some walks, or maybe for some reason I just wanted to do some jogging or do some more circuit style training. Maybe I'm super busy, and those sessions that are 2 hours or 2.5 hours in the past aren't going to cut it. So I need to set up 4 movements and do anywhere from 5 to 10 reps per movement, and I'm going to go through it for 30 minutes and see what happens. So just get creative, but that's always the first big one for me when I talk to people that are in that mental space, and I've been there before, so that's why I'm telling you. Next big tip is getting an accountability partner. So if you have somebody you want to go to the gym with, or somebody you do go to the gym with, just tell them how you're feeling. You know, yeah, you got to be a little bit vulnerable, but just say, hey, listen, I'm not really digging the gym right now, but I know it's what I should do. So, hey, can you just make sure that when I text you, you answer, you get my ass to the gym and we get it done? Something like that. Whatever it is, find the accountability, whether it's a person or maybe it's signing up for a work challenge or a challenge you see online, or maybe your gym's having a challenge, or it's something that you always wanted to do. It's a 5K, it's you just want to lose 15 pounds in whatever time frame, yada, yada, yada. You get it, but have something that gives you a deadline, and you kind of feel that little bit of that pressure to show up and get after it. Now, this is more of the rarity. I'm going to say it doesn't apply to most people, but if you've been training very hard for a long period of time, and we're talking years and years, and you're in a more intermediate advanced stage of your lifting career, there is a time where it's okay to, maybe you need a week off from the gym. Maybe you need 2 weeks to kind of just do all the other stuff that you've put on the back burner. But once again, that's a rarity. So I don't always think you need to take 1 to 2 weeks off every single year. I know some people that do that, but I feel like if you've been training long enough and hard enough, you maybe get forced into that rest time in a weird way, or you really have that honest conversation. And I think deep down, you kind of just know I need to take some time away from the gym, very well also knowing that that fire and that passion and just the drive to want to get back in there will naturally come back. And I think that's where people sometimes get freaked out too, is they don't think they're going to get the drive back when they go through these phases. Listen, I've gone through these phases multiple times. The drive always comes back, and it happens exactly how it should. So just sit tight, buckle up, do what you can, enjoy the ride, and you're going to get jacked and freaking stacked. Struggling to find the right balance between strength and hypertrophy work. Any advice? So once again, I put out power building videos, or strength and hypertrophy videos. Just type those in and put my name at the end of it, and you're going to get a lot of different videos. What I will say is, at the end of the day, specificity reigns king. So if you want to get really strong, you got to train strength. If you want to get jacked like a bodybuilder, you got to train like a bodybuilder. So the question is, can we do both? Yes, of course you can do both, but the gains are going to be slower if you try to do them both at the same time. Now, there are smart ways to go about this, and this is something that I've always kind of done because I've been able to stay relatively strong and jacked most of my career. I say that, but that's always the goal. I don't know if I'm jacked, I'm trying, but if I get there, I will let you know. The day you start getting big is the day you're forever small, Johnny. One of my favorite quotes is periodization shall set you free. So one of my favorite quotes is periodization shall set you free. Say that 10 times as fast as you can. So what you can do, and I do this all the time, is I set out my year and I figure out, do I have any big competitions? What are my goals? If I have competitions, I put them on the calendar. If I have other goals, I kind of write them, and that's where we create the plan. So if you want to get strong and jacked, you can set up blocks of training to get jacked, aka hypertrophy training, say for 6 to 12 weeks. And then after that, maybe you take a deload or you transition into a strength block. We're going to be working 3 to 6 reps, anywhere from that 70 to 90%. And if you're constantly playing with these blocks per se and swapping the pieces around over and over again, you're only going to continue to get stronger and get more jacked. And we think about it, if you can do really heavy sets of anywhere from 6 to 10 reps and that number just keeps increasing, chances are your overall strength has increased as well. And when you want to potentiate that into strength, you have a really solid foundation. And then from there, you just take a couple months of strength training and you're good to go and you're going to be strong as heck. Now, it doesn't have to be block periodization either. The proof is in the pudding, where we have people that do conjugate or concurrent style training programs and they have the best of both worlds. They are super strong and they are super jacked. So what it really comes down to is making sure you know your goals, you structure it appropriately, and you stick to the plan. And the one thing I will say to watch out for, and this is where I think people go wrong, is they try to do too much all at once. So have your main emphasis and priority, and then have something in the back burner, like your B's and your C's on your list. And just be aware of that, because if you're trying to make everything a number one priority, chances are it's going to take a very long time, or you're just going to be burning yourself out and really hitting the brakes and not getting too far anywhere because you're just spinning those wheels. Ooh, this is a fun one. If you could lift with one historical figure, who would it be and why? Doesn't have to be an athlete. Ooh. Thinking. Well, the answer is obviously your mom. I'm just kidding, that was weird. My brain went a couple different places when it came to the answer for this question. The first one, for whatever reason, was Tom Platz. I don't know why, I just saw his face and I saw his mannerisms and I saw him freaking out and just screaming, "Kill me!" And I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of that. I want him screaming that at me while we're doing a leg day where I potentially tear both and everything in my body. But it would be just iconic, right? Like iconic to lift with the Golden Eagle, to be in the presence of the Golden Eagle with that intensity. And listen, the Boogs talks about the mindset, and he's become, right, the mindset, but the mindset had to come from somebody, and that had to come from somebody. And I think in that chain of mindsets, Tom Platz was one of those names. And from people that I've talked to that have known him, have trained with him, or have been around him enough, always what they tell me is that he lived the life. Like he loved to train. He loved bodybuilding. Like he was the trainee. He was the bodybuilder. And there wasn't breaks. There was no off. It was, this is the life that he lives. And I respect that. And I like being around high caliber people like that who just go all in and they truly live the life. Because yes, there are people that do that, but there, yes, are a lot of people that don't do that. And I love being around the people that live the life, you know, just, oh man, could you imagine? Could you imagine like the peak Tom Platz just training with somebody like that all the time, every day? It would be absolutely insane. And you would have some sort of takeaway, whether you think it's good or bad, like you're forced to change, you're forced to grow physiologically and mentally. Do I do phone consults for programming? So the semi-short answer is yes. So if you want any of the a la carte stuff, you literally can go and buy it and start tomorrow. Same thing with the app. Pick any of the programs off the app, start ASAP. Now, what you can do also is if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, or if you just want to communicate with me because I'm the freaking coolest guy in the world, you can easily do that. And you just fill out my coaching form or application. and it gives me some background information on yourself. From there, I send an email back just going over that I read it, here's some of my thoughts. And then from there, we kind of riff back and forth. Potentially we get on a Zoom call, answer more questions, or kind of figure out what pathway would be the best with coaching. If I can answer that question pretty quickly before, based on those questions that you have submitted, I just kind of go back and forth with an email. But usually it always ends up on some sort of Zoom call where I get to know you more as a person, an athlete, and what your goals are. If I can be of assistance, awesome. If not, no big deal. I appreciate the conversation. I can kind of help figure out where maybe another route for you, or maybe it's another product or service that I have, that we can get you hooked up with. So I try to meet everybody somewhere when it comes to coaching. Obviously, I need to make a living, but at the same time, I understand that times are tough and everybody's in different situations. So we have free all the way to premium and everything in between. So fill out the programming questionnaire, no brainer, and then we'll be in touch. So if you're trying to do both, right, periodization, shall set you free. One of my favorite quotes is periodization shall set you free. One of my favorite quotes is periodization shall. Dude, I am messing up. So if you're trying to do both, periodization will set you free. I've said that like 15 times. Periodization shall set you free. Periodization shall set you free.